I am only for Canada. I'm fighting for the interests of this people.
Support for Pierre Poilievre's Conservative Party of Canada is dropping like a rock. And considering how Pierre Poilievre is talking about Trump, it's not surprising that he is unable to meet the moment. So I'm going to go through a few clips here and also compare him to another conservative in Canada who is actually doing a pretty good job at combating Donald Trump. So first, I want to show you just the state of Canadian politics right now, how the race is looking. So to be clear, there is not yet an election called. There is a Liberal Party leadership race that is going on, and there's going to be a new Liberal leader and thus a new prime minister within the next couple of weeks. And then it's expected soon after there will likely be an election called. But looking at how things have gone, we went from a situation where it was essentially a foregone conclusion that the Conservative Party would be forming the next government to a place now where it is neck and neck. So this is the 338 Canada polling averages. So you can see here how over time, Liberals have shot up like a rocket while Conservatives are dropping. And also, to be fair, the NDP are dropping. Many are leaving them to support the Liberal Party because they do not want a Conservative Party government in this time right now with a Donald Trump who is off the handle. But looking at the most recent poll, this is from Ecos Polling, March 5th. Liberals are up 41 to 36. And that +8 is the change from the last election. So they are 8 over from where they were last time in the last election. But this is a lead that appears to, or I should say, there's a pattern here where the Liberal Party will almost certainly appear to be leading in polling going forward, unless things change, right? Like, we see how quickly things have changed already. It's very possible that, let's say, Mark Carney wins the Liberal leadership race, that people may have sort of the new car smell goes away, and then they get tired of the Liberals, and then it's back to where it was before. So things can shift dramatically, which is also why I think the Liberals want to have an election, want to call an election really quickly, because you can't guarantee this momentum is going to continue. But looking at this poll question, this is from Ipsos. Who would be most likely to roll over and accept whatever President Trump demands? Poilievre sitting at a plurality here of 31%. Trudeau at 22%, Singh at 9%, Carney at 6%, Freeland at 4%, none of them at 27%. And do you feel X would? So Poilievre, do you feel Poilievre would do whatever Trump demands? Almost a majority here at 41%. Strongly oppose his demands is 27%. Meanwhile, Mark Carney, the majority, or I should say the plurality, believe that he will strongly oppose his demands, and only 17% say do what Trump demands. So clearly, most people right now feel like a Mark Carney in this situation would be better poised to combat the threats that Donald Trump is making as opposed to Pierre Poilievre. Now, this video is not going to help that because this is some of Pierre Poilievre's recent comments as he's been accused, correctly, for being too closely aligned with MAGA. Here he is reacting to that.
About President Trump's comments on me. The president says that he doesn't like me. He doesn't think that I'm a MAGA guy. I am not. It is true that I am Canada first. I am only for Canada. I'm fighting for the interests of this people and this country. And if that upsets foreign leaders, including the American president, I'm fine with that because I have one job to do, and it's to fight for this country.
I think Pierre Poilievre comes off as inauthentic just generally, but in this clip, it's especially clear. It seemed like his body was physically trying to reject the words that he was saying. Now, considering some of his connections to MAGA, it's not hard to see why. Jay Hunter sharing this public service reminder. Pierre Poilievre's chief strategist, Jenny Byrne, is a MAGA fangirl. Candice Bergen, former interim leader of the Conservative Party, is a MAGA fangirl. They support a man wanting to force Canada to become the 51st state, pro-Trump, anti-Canadian. They are each of them wearing their MAGA hats. And on Jenny Byrne, it's also worth noting this. So the NDP last year called for an investigation into her lobbying firm with obvious ties to the Conservative Party. So she is viewed as one of the most powerful conservative strategists in Canada. And Burns' firm lobbies on behalf of grocery giant Loblaw. So one of the big companies that has consistently been screwing Canadians, particularly through the pandemic, taking advantage of the inflationary period to jack up their prices even further and boost their bottom line. One of the close strategists of the Conservative Party lobbies on behalf of them. So the Ontario Lobbyist Registry lists 6 employees of Jenny Byrne and Associates as registered lobbyists for Loblaw Companies Limited. Now, the Liberal Party used this. So I want to be clear. I have voted in my entire life. I have voted for Liberals, Conservative once when I was young. I didn't know much. So I voted for the Liberals, the Conservatives, the NDP, and the Greens. I have voted for everyone. The Liberal Party generally, I'm not typically a big supporter of, but my support and vote always depends completely on the context of what we are in. I think this is how people should think generally. The context of the situation that we are in, where you live. If you have maybe you live in an area where you have a Green MP, one of the only seats where that's the case. But if you live in a situation like that, I would advise against voting, the Liberal or the NDP, because you want to keep your Green MP. But we are in a situation right now where if you're in a riding where it's going to be, the Conservatives or the Liberals or the NDP or the Conservatives, I would simply vote against the Conservative Party. That's where I stand. But I'm saying all that just to show you that I want to share this video from the Liberal Party, not because I support the Liberals necessarily, even though I want to make sure we avoid a Pierre Poilievre Conservative-led government. But just because this is so easy for other parties to use because of how inauthentic Pierre Poilievre is here.
The president says that he doesn't like me. He doesn't think that I'm a MAGA guy. I am not.
Everything is broken.
Everything is broken.
Political correctness.
Woke political correctness.
Defeating the radical left.
The radical left.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't.
They have no common sense. I am not.
So the Liberals have been putting out a few videos like this. There's another one that's, I think, almost 2 minutes long, where it's just back-to-back clips showing Trump, showing Poilievre, and they're basically saying, the same lines. It's right out of the Trump playbook. And considering Musk is one of his biggest fans, we shouldn't be surprised. Musk has been boosting Poilievre quite a bit over the past year. Perfectly articulated. Another masterpiece. This one saying 100 to another speech by Pierre Poilievre, and this was just late last year. Like, Elon Musk. Really? And you want to pretend, as Pierre Poilievre, you want to pretend that you are not a MAGA guy when this is one of your biggest boosters in the US. So I want to compare that to a different conservative, someone else who I also don't care for obvious reasons, if you are aware of Ontario politics and the endless scandals, many of which I've covered on this channel, the complete disaster when it comes to how he's handled healthcare. That is Doug Ford. But when it comes to Trump, he hasn't been too bad, I have to admit. Doug Ford finally, officially, for real, tearing up the $100 million contract with Elon Musk's Starlink. So great move there. And he has been all over media, especially in the US, discussing this. Let me give you an example of the kinds of things he's saying.
You ripped up Ontario's contract with Starlink. Explain that.
Well, we tore it up. I can't have anyone who's connected so deeply with President Trump trying to destroy our province and try to destroy our country. It's unacceptable. We're the largest purchaser of alcohol in the entire world. Ontario is. We have a liquor control board, so it all goes through the province. We ship up 3,600 products from the U.S. from 35 states. We have now cleared off all alcohol across all the shelves. And I just encouraged all our premiers, which they just agreed to, they're pulling all their alcohol off. So states like Kentucky, they're bourbon. They're going to be laying people off. They may be shutting parts of their plants down, which again, as far as I'm concerned, is unacceptable. We shouldn't have to be doing this whatsoever. I'm going to stockpile the high-grade nickel and sell it to the rest of the world. That China has the market cornered on it. 50% of your products that you manufacture nickel with in the military come from Ontario. That's stopped. I'm cutting off everything we possibly can. I don't want to do it. I'd rather do the opposite, ship you more high-grade nickel and more lithium and more cobalt and every other critical mineral that we have up here. But unfortunately, there's one person that should be held accountable, and that's President Trump.
I call this last Ontario election the Trump election because this is why Doug Ford's support held consistent despite all of the many, many, many scandals and disasters when it comes to various issues around healthcare, the Greenbelt, everything else. It's because this moment right now, the past couple of months, has really been about the Canada-US relationship. And Doug Ford has been one of the loud, boisterous, unfiltered voices pushing back against it. It has helped him despite all of those other scandals that he has. So that's a great example there. Another one that we're just living in wild times right now because he said he got off the phone with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, called him a gentleman. What a gentleman he is. What an absolute champion he is. Tim Walz, one of my favorite people. Americans, anyways. One of my favorite American politicians. Really cool to see that. And then also see him calling out Ron DeSantis. Check this out.
3.2 million Canadians go to Florida every single year. They own $30 billion, with a B, billion dollars worth of real estate. They pay $1 billion of taxes, and they spend approximately $10 billion. And guess what Governor DeSantis says? Well, they'll still come down. And I'm sure they will. But what an attitude. You know, what an attitude. He should be grateful 3.2 million Canadians come down there.
Love to see him calling out Ron DeSantis whilst, heaping praise on Tim Walz. Good stuff. And this clip also.
If they want to try to annihilate Ontario, I will do everything, including cut off their energy, with a smile on my face.
Like, other parties need to understand why Doug Ford is able to connect. Actually, I should be clear, not just other parties. The Conservative Party of Canada also needs to understand why Doug Ford connects when someone like Pierre Poilievre doesn't. Now, to be fair, I don't want the Conservative Party of Canada to understand that because I don't agree with them on policy. I don't want them to perform well. But the NDP, the Liberals, who I guess are doing a better job of this now considering, polling, but just focusing on Ontario politics, the Ontario NDP, the Ontario Liberals, they could do such a better job at communicating. Authenticity right now is really what people are clamoring for out of their politicians. If you're able to combine this sort of communication with good policy, which Doug Ford doesn't have, you can become the ultimate, Captain Planet politician, just combining all of the forces, all of the elements into the greatest individual in party. But no party right now has that. There are things to learn here. Have somebody who is normal, who can speak in, layman's terms to the people. Have that kind of individual lead a party like the NDP with some stronger policy behind it. And you are unstoppable, but we are not in that world right now. Oh God. So I wasn't sure if I was going to also go to this. I might as well since I brought it up here. Michael Cooper is one of the individuals. This is a conservative MP that the Conservative Party is rolling out there as someone to connect with the people. Before I play the clip, let me just share this comment from Stephen Gordon. The reason why so many people have recently decided to give the Liberals a second chance is that when they look at the Conservatives, they see raving, loony nutbards like this. So I'm only going to play like a minute of this. You can watch the whole thing yourself. I'll link to below the video because it's hard to listen to. But watch this.
Carney wants to be the Prime Minister of Canada, but yet as recently as 2 years ago on the international stage, declared himself to be something other than Canadian. In a room full of globalists at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Carney declared himself to be a European.
Mark, you look like you were about to.
Yeah, it was a tell.
As a European, you know, as a
European,
honorary
I am a European actually.
Oh, you
are?
are?
Yeah, Irish citizen. Yeah. So there you
welcome.
go.
Welcome.
Speaking as a European.
A European? Let that sink in for a moment.
Let that sink in for a moment. We got him. Mark Carney's actually European. Probably worth noting here that in 2013, Mark Carney became the first person who was not British to be hired as governor of the Bank of England, which he ran until 2020. He became a household name in Britain as he tried to steer the country through Brexit. That's why he said he's European, because he literally lived there for a long time. Has a passport. It's just like, what is the argument here? Worth noting, a Conservative Party in Canada, Stephen Harper's Conservative Party, brought Mark Carney in during the 2008 financial crisis to help steer Canada through that. And Canada came out of that a lot better than a lot of countries, particularly looking, next door to the US. Canada did very well. So that's why, the Brits went out to grab him from Canada to steer them through Brexit after that whole debacle. Like, what's the scandal here? But this is the kind of stuff they're rolling out there. This is how they're communicating with people. I don't know. I don't think it's going to connect, but what do I know? Very interesting times right now. It's weird. Pierre Poilievre was taking up a lot of, airtime before the Trump inauguration, and now he's just kind of disappeared. So, you could see he's seeing what's happening in the polling, and he's trying to come out and act all anti-MAGA now, but I think it might be a little too late.